I've just finished binding off the I-cord for the Panorama Bandana, and now the instructions ask me to sew together the two edges of I-cord. So I've put my working yarn onto my tapestry needle, and I am going to turn the piece this way. I like seaming horizontally. I'm going to take the working yarn, bring it underneath the very first I-cord stitch right here. Then I'm going to take the yarn and put it through this I-cord stitch at the top. Then here on the bottom piece, I'm weaving these two together, stitch after stitch. And now an I-cord is a tube, right? It's a tube that goes around. So I'm turning my piece to the back side to grab the last stitch on the bottom, and then the last half of a stitch on the top. And then I'm going to gently pull that closed to create my mattress stitch seam. And that's the I-cord sewn together. However, since this cowl was worked in the round, there is a little bit of a jog right here where I had stopped the work in the round and started the I-cord. So I'm going to, on the inside of the piece, kind of trail my yarn down to that space. So I've brought my yarn to the space. I'm going to push my needle to the right side of the work, to the outside of the fabric. All right. All right, so here we go. My yarn is now at the front of the work, and I am going to duplicate stitch around the big hole that was here to kind of close it up a little bit more, and I feel like that's enough, just a little bit to give it, to close it up. The tension on this fabric is still a little bit loose. It's meant to be loose and drapey, so I don't want to close it up so much that I then don't have any line of sight there. So there we go, that'll be that. Then I'll weave this tail in. I'll show you that right now. I'll weave this tail right into the side here. So I wove it up the I-cord, trailing under here, and then down the I-cord as well. Before snipping. And now we have to seam this opening as well, where we had the bound off edges from the I-cord that went up the sides of the cowl. So I've got my seaming yarn threaded onto the tapestry needle, and here again we've got one of those open spaces. So I'm actually going to start off up here at the top and stitch together that open space. And it depends what kind of tension you've got when you knit. I tend to be a bit of a loose knitter, so I grabbed a little bit more, but I basically stitched that part together. And then I'm going to start stitching my I-cord. So I grabbed a stitch on this side, one stitch on that side, and I'm going around the I-cord the same way that we did at the I-cord bind off on the top of the cowl till we get to the back side. And we're going to pull tight to close that seam. And then we can weave the tails in either to the I-cord or to that little bit of a seam there. And then that's that. And then you just have to block your cowl and you're all set. Here we go. Just tucking it in there. Pushing that to the wrong side. And then weaving this also into that kind of bump in the back, that little bit of a seam. Zig and zag it through to trap the yarn. Happy knitting!